Hi, this is Dom from Integral Partners, and in this video we'll cover some of the highlights from the recent 2021 CSO50 conference. We were proud to be sponsors of the event again this year. A special thanks to everyone we connected with. It's always great to talk with old friends and make some new ones. With everyone's busy schedules, it can be hard to view all the great content from the show, so this video can act as a preview. You can always go back and register using the link in our blog post below and stream the replays. And at the end of the video, I'll review a few of the most popular promotions and offers from the conference that might interest you. So let's get started. The first session I'll mention is from Tony Lee. He's a VP of Global Services at BlackBerry. Among the topics he touched on were the increasing boldness of ransomware attacks, the often unreported costs of them, and most surprising to me was the impact it had on the long-term prospects for the businesses that were attacked.
For example, in 2020, threat actors set a new ransomware record by demanding $30 million US. The REvil ransomware group broke this record in March of 2021 by breaching Acer and demanding $50 million. So less than 3 months later, REvil back at it again, compromised Kaseya and set the ransom at $70 million. And then something that is very difficult to quantify, which is the lost reputation. 60% of small and medium-sized businesses hit by a cyber attack were actually closed within 6 months. So the stakes just keep getting higher and higher.
The discussion with CSO50 award winner Nicole Ford was interesting. She's a CISO at Carrier. Nicole's keynote focused on ensuring that you get the basics of cybersecurity right. And here she talks about the convergence of OT, IT, and IoT.
So true for manufacturing, and especially a company like Carrier where we're into, the OT environment and the IoT environment. And we're making strides in both. I think OT, the challenge is that companies keep their operational technology for an average of 30 years, right? So you have to think about, there's this long trajectory of support that device provides to organizations, right? So our technologies have to stand the test of time. I think it's important to note that, we want to build extensible products that are modularized so that we can add more components over time. We also recognize that the OT environment is very difficult to patch, right? So one of the areas we're definitely making an investment in is over-the-air patching. And we're really trying to get that right so that it's no longer the organization that purchases the technology that has to, do the work. It's really us really adding value by these over-the-air updates. So it's just a lot of really neat things happening. What we're seeing is the spillover from enterprise IT into the OT space.
Yep. Next, let's preview the session of Scott Miller. He's a CISO at Mr. Cooper. The topic of his discussion was leveraging automation to improve the accuracy of audits. It really was an interesting discussion, and in this clip, Scott discusses the importance of continually evaluating previous technology purchases and how they go about that in Mr. Cooper.
But you really have to be putting your products through its paces. You can't just stick something in and expect that it's going to work as designed. I will tell you right now, we had our environment configured in one way, and we thought that everything we had configured was working 100% as expected. And then we contracted a company to use a BaaS platform to assess us and found out that what we thought was configured one way was really not working the way that we had designed it. And so we went back around and rectified that. And it didn't matter, and it doesn't really matter what endpoint solution I use, because that's not relevant. What matters is our endpoint company came in and had done an assessment of what we put into place from a configuration standards perspective and gave us the thumbs up over a year ago. Our penetration tests don't tell you that your endpoints are not necessarily properly configured. Your compliance checks don't necessarily tell you that everything isn't working the way it was designed to be working. You really have to put a product and the technology and the entire platform through its paces, and not just one workstation, but a representative population of all of the endpoint types that you may have in your company.
Cisco's session talked about why they adopted a zero trust framework and what that's enabled. Here their team talks about the 3 reasons that allowed them to make meaningful progress in just 5 months.
First, we got really specific on scope. We knew we wanted to be able to create a victory in a certain amount of time. In this case, we had 5 months to accomplish something significant, something that some people say would take 5 years. So what can you do in 5 months? We said, we'll give people or the workforce zero trust and a limited number of high impact workforce and productivity applications by the deadline. And these applications had to be ones that people use every day, like Carlos mentioned, Salesforce or Workday, things like that. And then second of the 3 things that made us successful quickly, autonomy. We had the license to make real decisions down to the lowest ranking member of the team. There was no time to run every call up the chain. So we stayed tight knit, kept everyone in the loop, but we made tough decisions when necessary. And along with that, we had license to fail. And that's hugely important to a team that has to move quickly. If you feel like your leadership won't have your back when you fail or when you make the wrong decision, you're going to agonize over every call and become paralyzed by that fear of failure. And then last, following on to that, leadership buy-in is imperative. We had support all the way up to executive leadership that what we were trying to accomplish was important for the future of Cisco.
On a related note, Integral Partners' very own Jason Ellis talked about demystifying and implementing Zero Trust, and he gave a preview of our free Zero Trust workshop. Here he introduces the workshop conversation around Zero Trust architecture and its role in determining your overall approach to Zero Trust.
Architecture is another topic, and when we're talking about Zero Trust architecture, immediately what most organizations think of is, what are we going to have to do to our network? What is this going to do to our endpoints? Really, how is this going to impact us overall, and what kind of changes does this mean? The discussion we have around this slide is really what that means, right? What is Zero Trust architecture? What are the components? How are the different parts of Zero Trust? How do they interface with each other and talk? How do the Zero Trust architecture components talk to the rest of the network and the rest of the environment? So we dive into each of those pieces. We dive into network security, into data management. We talk about governance decisions that need to be captured. We want to make sure you can understand and piece together how the different parts of IT have to be orchestrated for Zero Trust and really enable Zero Trust to work well.
John McClure, the CISO at BlackBerry, talked about the predictive prowess of AI and the role that it can play in cybersecurity.
It's that the mathematicians were able, and we always sort of knew, even when I was back in the FBI, we knew if we could sort of map the genomic structure of the internet, we could quickly identify what was the anomalous or the malicious as opposed to what was the benign. But we lacked the cognitive ability to wrap our arms around something as large as and data laden as that internet. And with the mathematicians being able to take your classic benign files and your classic pernicious or malicious files, extract millions of attributes as to what makes them both benign and malicious, add a numeric value to that and pull it into an algorithm, and then let it continue to learn as we get more and more instances, data points of these different instances. It continues to learn and grow on its own, which is amazing.
Randy Harold, the CISO at Manpower Group, touched on the challenges they faced when they needed to prepare 90% of their 600,000 plus associates to work remotely once the pandemic hit. Within that discussion, he talked about the factors that are driving the change we're seeing to the role of the CISO.
CISOs right now are in a position where they're like a tube of toothpaste, and people are grabbing it and squeezing it in the middle. And they're either going out one end or out the other. And on one end is people are going to an area where they're comfortable. I call it the back room. They're going back to being technologists. They're going back to solutioning and focusing on that operational aspect, that tactical aspect. On the other end, people are coming out and they're becoming more business leaders. They're spending more time with the business. They're spending more time with the board, trying to do more education and strategy than I will say, tactical solutioning and operations. I think that's the big shift that you're seeing right now. And quite honestly, I also think it's an area where a lot of CISOs are struggling. They're not sure which side they want to go out, or maybe they went out one and decided afterwards they wanted to go back out the other. But if we step back and look back 15, 20 years ago, we already have a model to follow. The CIOs of the world went through this same type of shift years ago. So there is actually a model to follow. But again, I just think it's a natural maturation of what's happening in the security space.
Tim Callahan is a global CSO at Aflac. He started his keynote with a summary of their CSO50 award-winning project that automated the e-discovery process. And he talked about the outcomes that project delivered.
The project was really to automate e-discovery. I mean, I know I'm not serving it well because there's so much more than that. But, you know, like many companies, we depended heavily on outside counsel when we had a matter to address that involved, you know, gathering information, emails, you know, content, etc. And we tended to spend a lot of money. I mean, you know, attorney fees, legal fees are not cheap. So what the team did is figure out, you know, both in process and then in implementing technology to bring that in-house, but do it quicker and more efficiently. And so what we've done is saved, you know, the company a significant amount of money. In the process, we found all kinds of matters that were still open because it was a highly manual process. And, you know, almost like technologists, you know, attorneys don't do as good a job getting rid of stuff as starting stuff, right? And, you know, so we closed about 100 open matters and was able to dispose of that content because the cases have been closed.
From there, I'd recommend that you watch Beth Saylor's discussion. She helped drive the e-discovery project at Aflac that Tim spoke about. And during her session, she gives more detail about their approach, including the value they found in dealing with legacy systems during the project. Among the topics that Jason Lee, the CISO at Zoom, talked about was the somewhat unique role that the board of directors plays in helping them address risk.
Historically, at previous companies, I presented up to the audit committee, and the audit committee predominantly focus on the financial side, financial aspects of it. There is an IT angle to it. Here at Zoom, we created a cybersecurity committee. So actually board members that are dedicated to cyber. So I have three incredible human beings. I've got Kimberly Hammonds, who worked at Deutsche Bank, Boeing, Dell, Janet Napolitano, former Secretary of Homeland Security, and then last but not least, General H.R. McMaster. So I've got an incredible group of leaders that are dedicated to look at things from my funding, how I'm doing incident response, disaster recovery. And so the amount of airtime I get as a security program on a quarterly basis is just incredible.
Well, if you're going to have those people or somebody on a committee, that's a great rock star list of people to have on a cybersecurity committee. So it's
I'm very lucky.
Ruta Almeida, the CISO at Delta Dental, highlighted the three important aspects of the third-party risk management project they undertook. Delta actually turned this program into a service that they provide to other Delta member companies, which is quite interesting. So you can check out the rest of Ruta's keynote and hear the full story.
Now you turned this into a service though, right?
Yes. So that I think was one of the very innovative approaches that we took. So we are a regular corporate security program. We are not in service industry. We don't provide services or anything like that. But when we built this robust third-party risk management program, we said, we put in this much effort. We have a lot of lessons learned. Why don't we make it and provide it as a service to other Delta member companies? So we converted our program into a third-party risk management as a service. And now, other than being a CISO, I'm also a sales and a marketing executive trying to sell my third-party risk management as a service.
So go ahead and use the link in our blog post to register if you haven't already to watch the replays of these sessions. And lastly, as part of our sponsorship of the event, we created a free Zero Trust and IAM Essentials workshop. It's focused on helping teams understand the fundamentals of IAM and Zero Trust, and learn what it takes to build a successful Zero Trust and identity roadmap. We do always customize these workshops to fit the audience. You can find a link in the blog post to learn more, but these workshops are a great way to lean on our 20+ years of experience. Our advisory team understands how to build an identity program and would be happy to talk to you. So reach out if you'd like more information or to schedule a workshop. Thanks for your time, and take care.